Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening everyone. Welcome back with me Mr. Asef Budiman. In this occasion, we are going to continue the lesson of curriculum and material development. Last meeting, if we still remember, we talked about the content and sequencing, and there are 8 principles. I would like to remind you that in curriculum and material development, in the principle of teaching, there must be 20 aspects that we have to consider, starting from content and sequencing, format and presentations, and also monitoring and assessment. When we take a look at the slide here, in the next slide, we have 8 aspects in content and sequencing, 10 in format and presentation, and monitoring assessment. There are 2, and the total numbers are 20 principles of language teaching. This meeting, we are going to focus on the format and presentations. Okay? We are going to focus on the format and presentations, which has also more aspects than content and sequencing. First of all, let's talk about format and presentation. In format and presentations, it focuses on how we are teaching in the classroom, the format or the design or the techniques we are using in the implementation of teaching learning process in the classroom. Or it can also be implemented in the lesson plan, reflected in the teaching learning process. Jadi di format and presentation ini kita akan membahas bagaimana cara kita mengajar atau kondisi belajar mengajar di dalam kelas, dan teknik atau model atau metode mengajar, dan juga model yang akan kita terapkan di dalam RPP atau rencana pelaksanaan pembelajaran. Jadi intinya tetap dalam satu goal atau satu tujuan, tetapi kita fokus di format atau teknik atau presentasi bagaimana kita mengajar di dalam kelas. There are 10 aspects in format and presentations. The first of all is motivations, or strands, comprehensible input, fluency output, deliberate learning, time on task, depth on processing, integrative motivation, and the last is learning style. Let's talk it one by one, everyone, starting from motivation. Motivation here is the first aspects in format and presentations. Do you know why, everyone? Because no matter how good or how is the best of the teaching learning process, if the students are not motivated to learn, it will be less interesting, isn't it? We have to underline the word motivation. There will be a lot of discussion if we talk about motivations, but within 10 aspects here, I would like to give you explanations, only the outlines of the explanations. As much as possible, the learners should be interested and excited. We have to underline the word interested and also excited, because interested and excited deals with motivation about learning the language. If they are interested and excited, then they can value the learning. Jadi ketika mereka termotivasi dalam belajar, mereka juga akan merasa tertarik dan juga mereka ingin belajar, sehingga mereka berpikir bahwa ketika mereka belajar itu ada yang mereka dapat. Okay, this is motivation. So that's why in the format and presentations, and we are teaching in the classroom, as much as possible we should motivate them. It can be direct motivation, like we give several motivations. It can also be indirect motivations, like we are giving the examples of motivation, something like that. And the next one is for strengths. A course should include roughly even balance of meaning-focused input, language-focused learning, meaning-focused output, and fluency activities. There's also a lot of discussion on it, especially from Nation and McAllister. You may read the book, but I would like to give you the outline of 4 strands here. There are 4 strands. Jadi ada 4 aspek yang akan kita pelajari dalam principle of language teaching. The first one is meaning focused input. Jadi keempat-empatnya itu harus balance atau harus seimbang. Meaning focus input itu seperti apa sih? Jadi yang intinya receptive skill dalam bahasa Inggris itu ada listening dan reading. Jadi listening dan reading itu juga harus seimbang ketika kita ajarkan atau mengajari dalam kelas in English. And also language focused learning. We also learn language, the language itself. Jadi bahasanya juga kita pelajari. Apa sih yang kita pelajari dalam bahasa? Ya, kita bisa pelajari vocabulary, grammar, discourse, or pronunciation. This is language focused learning. Kita belajar bahasanya di sini, bukan skillnya. Oke? Okay? And the next one, meaning focused output. Tadi kita sudah bahas input yaitu reading dan listening. The meaning focused input we deal with output that the students can produce, the productive skill which are writing and also speaking activity. Okay, and the last one is fluency activities. Fluency activities the way to make them drill and practice what they get from the teaching learning process, because the best way to practice is by keeping or going on practicing what they get, so that's at the end they can be fluent in practicing the language. Next one is comprehensible input. There should be substantial quantities of interesting, comprehensible, receptive activities in both listening and also reading. Here we have to underline the word input. Then before they make the output, sometimes it is also important for us to stress on the input first. The quantities of input should be considered very good by the teacher. We have to also underline the word interesting, comprehensible, receptive activity. It must be interesting, it must be comprehended by the students. It's not only one way or one models of teaching, listening, and reading. We may also use different models of teaching, listening, and reading. So that's why it will be interesting and it will be also comprehensible by the students. The next one is fluency. A language course should provide activities aimed at increasing the fluency which learners can use the language they already know. As I told you before, after they get the knowledge from the meaning focused input or the language learning, and they get also the language focused output, they have to practice them. We have to drill them, and also they have to practice the language they get. This is the philosophy of fluency. We have to provide them the activities aimed at increasing the fluency. Because as nations or the other expert also says that the more you are doing in it, the better you are doing in it. Or practice makes perfect. Okay, the more you are learning at it, the better you are doing at it. Semakin banyak kita belajar sesuatu, semakin baik kita di dalamnya. Semakin banyak kita praktek, semakin bagus kita menguasainya. Itu adalah prinsip dari fluency. Jadi ketika kita sudah mendapatkan sesuatu, itu kita harus mempraktekannya langsung supaya kita lebih lancar atau lebih paham terhadap sesuatu yang kita dapat. Next one is output. The learner should be pushed to produce the language in both speaking and writing over a range of discourse type. And speaking and also writings are very important because if we are focusing on input, sometimes when they are asked to give the output, it's very hard for speaking and writing for the productive skills. When they have got something, then when they are asked to speak and also to write, it will be sometimes difficult for them because they lack speaking and writing activities. They lack productive activity. They lack output activities. It must be balanced from input and also output in learning language. And it also in the form of discourse type. Can be different contexts, different topics, or different categories can also possible. Next one is deliberate learning. In deliberate learning, we have to underline that it is about language-focused learning. The sound system, the language-focused learning is focusing on sound system, spelling, vocabulary, grammar, and discourse areas. Jadi language-focused learning ini adalah bagaimana cara kita mempelajari bahasa atau suatu bahasa. Jadi sound system bagaimana bunyinya, pengejaannya, kosakatanya, tata bahasanya, dan juga discourse-nya atau diskursusnya suatu bahasa itu kita harus pelajari. Itu namanya deliberate learning. So we are not only talking about skills, karena kan kebanyakan we are only talking about skills in language like speaking, reading, listening, and writing without considering the language focused learning. As we know that language focused learning are attached in the skills, jadi akan disematkan ke dalam pembelajaran skills juga. Next is time on task. As much time as possible should be spent using and focusing on the second foreign language. It is very important, everyone. As much time as possible should be spent using and focusing on the second language. We are learning English language in this case. So whenever we are learning this language, as much time as possible, we have to use the language. Okay? As much time as possible. In any cases, in greetings, in giving explanations, in asking or answering questions, even in other situations, we have to use this foreign language. We call it time on task. Okay, time on task, or the more we are using the language or the foreign language will help learners view the language as the means of communications, not only the subject of the studies. Jadi di sini intinya, ketika kita sedang belajar bahasa Inggris, ya seharus mungkin atau sebanyak mungkin kita harus menggunakan bahasa Inggris dalam kelas. Jadi meminimalisasi penggunaan bahasa kita, bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Jawa atau bahasa Sunda, karena semuanya harus digunakan, main language-nya adalah bahasa Inggris. Kenapa? Karena ketika kita menggunakan bahasa Inggris, students itu akan memandang bahwa bahasa Inggris itu bukan hanya sebagai objek pembelajaran, tetapi sebagai alat komunikasi. Nah, itu akan lebih bagus. Kalau kita memandang hanya sebagai objek atau objek suatu pelajaran, mungkin mereka akan hanya belajar saja. Tapi kalau untuk alat komunikasi, mereka akan belajar lebih dari itu. Okay? So that's why I encourage you to as much time as possible speak English, because we are learning English everywhere, anywhere, every time, especially in English classroom. Okay? Next is depth of processing. Learners should process the items to be learned as deeply as thoughtfully as possible. In depth of processing, here it relates to sometimes when we are learning vocabulary. When we are teaching vocabulary, sometimes the common way of teaching vocabulary of the unknown word, we directly give the meaning of the words. It is actually not depth of processing because there is no process. If we give the explanations of the unknown word, then it will be processed. Let me give the example of when we have the word allow. If we translate it directly, there will be no process of the learners. But if we try to make sentence by using this word, it will be different. Jadi ketika di depth of processing itu bagaimana cara kita mendalami suatu proses pembelajaran. Gampangannya ketika kita belajar vocabulary suatu kosakata yang sulit, misalnya saya akan memberikan kata allow, A-double-L-O-W, allow. The students don't know the meaning of allow. If I translate it directly, allow artinya mengizinkan. There will be no process because they can directly get the meaning. Allow, mengizinkan. But if I write down or if I give explanations, I do not allow my children to eat dirty food. There will be no direct translation here because they have to guess the meaning. So there will be process in their thought of the meaning of allow. They can guess, they can get it from the meaning of from the sentence. It will be deeper rather than translating. Okay, so this is the easy example of depth of processing. In integrative motivations, as I told you before, motivation is very important in learning. A course should be presented so that the learners have the most favorable attitudes. Motivation relates to attitude, to the language, to the users of the language, to the teacher's skill in the language, and to their chance of success in learning language. Jadi motivasi itu artinya sangat luas. Ketika mereka sudah punya motivasi terhadap belajar bahasa Inggris, sikap mereka juga akan bagus terhadap bahasa Inggris. Sehingga time atau kemungkinan mereka belajar bahasa Inggrisnya akan lebih ketika dia tidak punya motivasi belajar bahasa Inggris. Mungkin kalau dia motivasinya sedikit, mereka akan belajar hanya di dalam kelas. Tapi kalau motivasinya banyak, di luar kelas pun mereka akan belajar. Jadi, attitudes-nya bukan hanya terhadap bahasa Inggrisnya, tapi terhadap pengguna bahasa Inggrisnya juga bagus, terhadap gurunya juga bagus, terhadap kesempatan mereka untuk menjadi sukses dalam belajar bahasa Inggris juga akan bagus. So that's why this is also integrative motivation. So the last one is the learning style. There should be opportunity for learners to work with the learning materials in ways that most suit their individual learning style. Learning style is very important. We cannot emphasis on the students, we cannot press the students to learn the materials in such way, because sometimes the learning style of the students are different, and we give them the freedom to choose how to learn the language themselves by providing them with some learning activities that accommodate their learning styles. Jadi di learning style ini atau style pembelajaran itu setiap masing-masing siswa terkadang berbeda. Jadi kita harus mengakomodasi pembelajaran itu untuk suit atau cocok dengan pembelajaran seperti mereka. Karena di learning style itu kita tidak dapat memaksakan bahwa untuk belajar speaking harus seperti ini. Misalnya speaking harus praktis, harus ngomong partner, itu tidak bisa. Terkadang yang lain itu membutuhkan misalnya belajar sendiri, atau mereka butuh nonton atau lihat sesuatu baru bisa belajar, itu kan beda-beda. Jadi kita harus sebagai guru harus menyediakan aktivitas yang bisa mengakomodasi bermacam-macam learning style dari students kita, sehingga mereka belajar senyaman mungkin mereka terhadap pembelajaran bahasa Inggris. Okay? That's all of the meetings today about the format and presentations, the way we teach, the method, the models, and also the design of the lesson plans of teaching learning process implemented in the classroom. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and also comments below in the commenter. Okay? Thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.